The 90s were a golden age for the fighting genre. Some of the landmark titles that we associate with the genre came out during this decade. I'm Will from Game Rant, and today we're talking about the 10 best fighting games from each year in the 90s. 1990, Pit Fighter. Unfortunately, the best of the 90s started to come out in 1991, so the beginning of the decade is a little bit rough. Pit Fighter is a game very similar to Mortal Kombat visually, although it lacks a lot of what makes its younger, more popular counterpart so great. The entire game centers on a more urban and grungy aesthetic with an underground fighting tournament to win a pile of money and a forklift as your podium. Atari never followed up on this game and maybe missed out on something really special. 1991, Street Fighter II: The World Warrior. Street Fighter II, in a way, defined the fighting game genre as we know it. Fighters could combo their moves into more strings which had never really been done before. The levels were dynamic and had more personality than just being a stage, and there was a relatively wide cast of characters for players to choose from. Those characters also supported different playstyles, meaning different players could find the fighter they feel the most comfortable with. Street Fighter II created the blueprint for all fighting games after it. 1992. Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter II was revolutionary in how it defined a genre, but Mortal Kombat was revolutionary in how it changed what games depicted. Mortal Kombat used its unique motion capture to create characters that remain iconic to this day. Plus, it expanded on what Pit Fighters had and made the world more fantastical as demons and gods made their way to the roster. Not to mention Mortal Kombat's standout feature, fatalities. 1993. Virtua Fighter. 1993 was an incredibly strong year for fighting games. Both the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat franchises had introduced fan-favorite characters and improved upon what was already strong. Virtua Fighter, though, takes the top spot of this year by bringing something new to the table. The 3D models used in the game are certainly blocky compared to those of modern games, but at the time, it was something completely unique. It would also inspire the likes of Tomb Raider and Quake with realistic animations and its 3D models. 1994. Super Street Fighter II Turbo. By 1994, Street Fighter II was turning 3 years old and fans were waiting for Street Fighter III to finally come out. Capcom decided to add one more release of Street Fighter II with another adjective attached, which became the definitive version of the title. It would set the stage for future installments of the franchise and introduced Akuma as a secret boss. Since then, Akuma has remained a staple of Street Fighter, and this game has remained a staple of tournament play. 1995. Virtua Fighter 2. Virtua Fighter 2 took what the previous title had done and simply improved on it in every way. The graphics were smoother and the stages were more wondrous. The gameplay was improved to include special moves and new fighting styles. This game sold the Sega Saturn and brought another elite fighting game into the decade. 1996. X-Men vs. Street Fighter. By 1996, the fighting game revolution was in full swing. More and more classics were reinventing themselves and new games were delving into and improving upon 3D. In this landscape, what does X-Men vs. Street Fighter do? To put it simply, it brought the Marvel comic characters we know and love to the arcade fighting scene. This would pave the way for the Marvel vs. Capcom series years later, which is still beloved amongst fighting game fans. 1997. Tekken 3. Ironically, the Tekken series started out by trying to replicate the success of the Virtua Fighter series, but with Tekken 3, it would overtake the franchise it aimed to copy and establish itself as one of the premier 3D fighting series. The graphics and animations were improved, gameplay was tighter and more intuitive, and the game changed out the original cast for exciting new additions. Tekken 3 took the series to the top. 1998. Soul Calibur. In 1998, the fighting genre was perhaps the strongest it's ever been. Street Fighter Alpha 3, Marvel vs. Capcom, King of Fighters 98, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure all came out in this year. So in such a strong year for fighting games, which game takes the cake? Well, it could only be Metacritic's best rated fighting game of all time, Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur brought with it a new dynamic fighting system with full range movement and interactive arenas. Weapons were varied and unique and offered different attack ranges. If there was a king of the fighting games, Soul Calibur would certainly be on top. 1999. Street Fighter 3. Third Strike. Street Fighter 3 closes out our list with the long-awaited third entry in the Street Fighter franchise. With it brings an improvement to the gameplay and graphics that the series is known for. Unfortunately, 3D games were the hot commodity at the time, and anything other than that was shot down and ignored, which is a shame since this by all means is a solid game. It would eventually get the love it deserves, but only later, once people could appreciate it for what it is. That was our list of the best fighting games for every year in the 90s. For more games and articles like this, remember to drop by GameRant.com. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time.